Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Fiona and I have had a bit of a break last month from producing Mibbes Aye, but we're back. We've been out and about. We've been recording various things. Fiona, this one's called Independence Centre Stage. Great title. Tell us a bit more about it.
There's a clue in that title. This is a stage performance that we're about to bring you, and it was a live show at the Roxbury Theatre, and it was put together by a lady called Jasmine Lindemann. And we're first going to have a quick chat to Jasmine so she can tell us all about the background, how she did it, and then we'll watch the performance.
Fantastic.
So Jasmine, start off, tell us what's the background? How did somebody from Melbourne end up entertaining people in Edinburgh on a Sunday afternoon?
I moved here in 2016. So I moved here, I was 24 years old, needing a dramatic life change, as many people do. I'd been here a couple of years beforehand for a trip for my friend's wedding, and I just fell in love with Scotland. Like, I felt very connected, and I feel like it's probably a very common feeling, especially from anyone who's from a colonized country, probably has a connection to, you know, where I guess their ancestors are from. Or I'm only one generation Australian anyway, and Australia is made predominantly of immigrants. I think when I came here I went, oh, is this what home's meant to feel like? So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get here. Both my grandmothers are English, so I got to do an ancestry visa, and I'm very, very lucky to be able to kind of get here and have some really interesting insights on the immigration system. Even as a white person from the Commonwealth, it is hard and expensive.
It's also the English system as well. It's not the one we would want in Scotland.
No, it's very not. And I think then living here for so long, I've learned so much about the difference as well. I mean, the Scottish identity, but also the Scottish sensibility and all those things, like in the sense of how Scotland would prefer to work with immigration rather than the Home Office. And I think from afar, people don't see that. People don't really understand. My mum will still say England or Britain sometimes. I'm like, no, Scotland, actually. It's just Scotland. That's what we're,
It's interchangeable, isn't it? UK, England, Britain. It all means England, yeah.
It all means England.
It all means England. But you're here, which is lovely.
Yes.
And you're doing a master's. What tell us about that?
I am, yes. So I came here a long time ago to work in the arts, and then I found my way after I got settled status to the Masters at QMU, Queen Margaret University. It's a Masters in Arts, Festival and Cultural Management, which is quite specific and something that has been incredible. So I'm at the end of it now. The project that I did that you'll see more about shortly was for my Masters project. So I'm doing practice-based research, which is a lot about the act of doing and what you're learning through actually that action. So the act of putting on this event, planning this event, connecting with these artists is all part of my research.
Right. So we're all helping you as part of that master's. We're helping you with your qualifications.
Very grateful. Yeah.
How do you start putting a show together like that? Because, I mean, we just turn up on the day and the stage is there, the events, the hall's booked, there's tea and coffee, you know, there's a lot must go on before you actually stand up on the stage.
Yeah, it's definitely that calm duck on the surface of the water and the legs kicking really hard underneath. That's definitely what it is, putting on an event. But it should look effortless, so that's definitely, I'm glad that it did, so that's nice. But it was a few months in the making. The idea came last year, probably last October, so I kind of knew vaguely what I wanted to do, but I didn't kind of put my feelers out to any artists or venues until April, May time, so it kind of came together quite quickly. And it helps that I have the connections because I work in the industry. Like the venue, for instance, I'd worked with that venue before, the year before, so I got a brilliant deal. And one of the people who works there, who was my tech for the day, was an alumni for my course. So there's also nice connections
It was a beautiful venue. I'd not been in that one before, and that's after decades of doing stuff at the festival.
Stunning. So yeah, Roxy Central. My two kind of big passions in life are arts and politics, the things that I think I've always been quite drawn to. I was very lucky that my family is quite politically aware, and that's always been part of conversations. It's never been something I had to kind of figure out all on my own. It's been something that's been very engaged in politics, even if people, my family, my grandmother and I have very vastly different political views, but the act of voting and the act of participating has always been really relevant and really big in our family. So I think that's something that I've always been really passionate about, and learning more about that. So when I moved here, it was something that I really focused on was the independence movement, because I think from an outsider I could see why it made sense so easily, why it made sense. And I was like, why is this even a conversation? Like, what are we? Yeah. I don't understand that. But yes, I think from an outsider perspective coming in going, of course.
That's such an interesting point, because we hear that from all over Europe, various Scandinavian countries, and that's what they're saying, come on, Scotland, what's wrong with you? We're waiting for you. And the people that we have to convince is not anybody outside, it's us, it's our fellow citizens.
Definitely. Yeah. And I can see why that's a struggle as well, because nobody likes change, nobody likes doing things, probably is a big factor. But I also, so I guess moving back to, and then the arts is the other aspect of, I guess, where my passions are and what I'm good at. So like, I think I mentioned it a little bit in the event, but I went to the Independence Convention even for SMP, and they were trying to get people to, do door knocking or other kind of campaigns. But my skill set is with people and with artists and arts management. And so I do think that it's important to also stick to your strengths and be able to use those strengths in an effective way in this kind of movement.
I could just go back to, what we're saying about bringing, the arts in and the importance of doing that. And that's so true, isn't it? Because back in 2014, I was always going to vote yes. But the first thing I did was go and convince myself about the economics of it, which was not difficult to do. And I noticed that French TV were explaining to the French population just how strong an economic case we had, and in a way that the British TV didn't ever do. So that would be where I would look to first. But actually, there's a whole other side of, there's figures and there's economics, but then there's also, the kind of stories that we tell each other. And the music that we have, we've got an incredibly rich music kind of thread going through, Scottish kind of people, and also literature, writing, poetry. And to bring that in, that has to be brought into the Independence Campaign. And, I thought that was such a good event to put on, because it just helps do all that. And sometimes it's just dead funny, and it's all Glaswegian and it's Gallus, and other times it's a bit more kind of serious, but still actually bringing that mythic side in. So presumably you connect with that as well yourself?
Definitely. I think that the easiest way to make change is to bring the humanity to it. And I think also opening that conversation up. A big part that came out of the event for me that I really recognized was that so much political conversation has language that's inaccessible, intentionally inaccessible. And art has a way of being accessible for different people and different ways, and can open things up or open you up in a really different way. And then you can leave a room feeling completely different than how you walked into it. Yeah. And I do think that there's a power of that, a power of story, a power of people. And I think that that's what's been kind of often missing in these kind of political conversations. And that's because it's not the structural way of how people design things. It's not how campaigns traditionally go. But there was still, in 2014, the National Collective, and they had 4,000 members and lots of incredible work that was done then as well. Yeah. This is not an original idea at all. This is not me going, hey, has anyone ever thought of this? But I do think that it's important to, remember it, because the National Collective folded in 2015. And I think for me, bringing all these people again together and kind of highlighting that this art was already happening. Like, I didn't commission anyone to do the arts that I showcased. All this art was already out there. Yeah. I just brought it together.
The other thing that I loved about your event, though, was usually when we're in a room, everybody's our age. If you're at these events, and the kind of people who go to political discussions and topics and panels and events, it does tend to be the older ones. But your event, it was full of young people, and the room had a different vibe because of that. It had a different energy, which was lovely. I mean, I suppose that's the beauty of you being also in that at that end of the spectrum. You know, you were able to connect with people that age.
I kind of think I'm in the middle, because I think the oldest participant we had was I'm 31, but I think the youngest people we had there were 18.
Yeah.
And then on the older end is like kind of 50, 60. And so it's kind of nice. I do feel like I'm maybe in this interesting middle millennial kind of stage that I can kind of communicate to the Gen Zs and to other people as well, and kind of have that. I do feel like I'm in a nice middle zone to kind of bring that together. But I agree. I mean, again, at this S&P event I went to only a week before, it was definitely an older crowd, which I think is really interesting, because so much of this is about the future. Not that it's not your future, because it definitely is, but I mean in the sense of young people being really engaged in their future.
There's a sense of timing, though, I think, that we were having a chat with Laura Pollock from the National, and she'd been chatting to a young voter, and they were saying, oh, yes, they were sure that by the time they were grandparents, Scotland would be independent. We're going, we need it now, never mind. By the time your kids are grandkids. They can be passionate about things like climate change. They can be passionate about the cost of living crisis and practical issues in front of them, equality, all those things, and yet somehow not link it to independence and to us. You know, looking from our perspective, that's the door that opens all the other doors. You know, that's the only way you can do some of these things, given our position in the UK and with Westminster, as you all know, you know, stamping on every bit of initiative that we put forward. The latest being the drugs decriminalisation. So, do you get that sense as well, that there's sort of a disconnect?
I can see that. I think there's a level of big picture, small picture, and the issue is. Big picture is climate. Climate is the whole world, right? Like, and there's definitely a level of all these other rights, which I think are just as important. But I also think that it doesn't matter if you have rights if you don't have a planet to live on.
Absolutely.
So I do think that climate being the main thing we're concerned about is very relevant and very apparent. I'm from Australia. I have seen some insane climate disasters. Whole town was demolished in fire in 2009 with the biggest fire on record at that time, which has now been broken, you know, as the hottest, biggest fire ever. And now that's been broken. My great auntie lives in a town of Lismore in northern New South Wales that had a once in a lifetime flood, once in a century flood, and once in a 10-year flood a week after, and people had to break themselves out of their ceilings to get out and find help. The horrors are already in this world. The time is past. We're not changing climate change. We're figuring out how to live with it or how we cope with it. And I think that of that being a huge priority of the independence movement would be a very smart thing to do. I think for SNP, I would make that a massive priority to really highlight, because I do think that would push that conversation towards them, because I can see that door is the one to open before we can get to the next part. But I also see why the Greens are so important and why the bigger message is so important also.
I mean, things like Rosebank and campaigns are going on, you know, independently. They're not really part of the independence movement. Although did we not have an all under one banner march at COP26?
I mean, it's a good time for it.
It was a good time for it, but it still didn't feel very integrated to me. And it was the fabulous march that went through Glasgow and all the different, you know, all the costumes and everything. And then you had this block of indie supporters with our saltires. And I thought that it would have been much more powerful if they'd been integrated, woven in through the whole march, I think. That's true. This is the way we do things.
For myself, I just want us to be independent for its own sake, but a very closely interwoven with that for me is that I think Scotland could, we'd do a lot better at pursuing climate change targets if we were independent. Plus, we could be out in the world having a stronger effect out there, say through the UN and other places.
I think it can't be separate. I think all of these things are connected. I think when people speak about political art, it's also feminist art. It's also climate art. It's also queer art. It's also, you know, it's all of those things. Like, that's what political art is. It's not in this specific thing. It's quite political and quite precise. But I also think that it is all of those things.
It's humanity, isn't it? It's all the things that we care about and that are close to us. And
what other events do you think would be great to do just to carry on with the spirit of what you've done? I don't know if you've got any yourself in the pipeline, or if you're just going to tick the box and move on. But are there any other things that you can think of that we actually could maybe start pushing or stirring, see if we can get something going?
I do think that like a network again would be really helpful. Like I think the collective, the national collective that happened in 2014 was a marvel. I think something like that is incredible. I think the connection it had with community and with people and having conversations, I think was really powerful. And again, having conversations rather than yelling at people for being stupid and not thinking that independence is the right choice, which I totally understand too, because often I'm like, how could you not?
Could you not?
What?
Yeah.
What? I don't know. It's that your democracy is getting taken away. What? How did you? What? Like, I definitely have a problem with going and pulling it back sometimes and having a helpful conversation rather than an accusatory conversation. And I think the arts make that a lot easier. One of the best quotes that came from the day was, in art, you can ask questions, where in politics, you're made fun of for asking those questions.
I haven't seen all of the footage that we got from the event, Jasmine, but I have watched some of it. I was killing myself laughing, actually. Some of it is so funny. And it's
Sad Girls
Club. And it's so clever.
They are hilarious,
it's hilarious. Well done for bringing that together. And I take what you said. It's like they were all out there doing that anyway, but you have brought them together, and that's such a crucial function to have someone who's got the skills and enthusiasm to do that.
For me, that's what my master's is about as well. It's about the place of an arts manager in this conversation. So why my role in that conversation, even though it's not my art, but giving it a stage, giving it a platform, giving it a space, giving it an audience. And so that's something that an arts manager does and can do. And it's like, I guess, when they're choosing to and what they're choosing to use that power for good or for evil.
Well, I just think we're really fortunate that you decided to come over to here to do it, and I've ended up in Edinburgh doing that course. And obviously, it's a course that's there are other people graduating from it as well. So
it's a brilliant course.
The effect of that kind of trickles through into Scottish life.
I always think it's great to have somebody who's actually come from somewhere else to here, feels welcome, feels they can contribute, add something. That's what it's all about. That's the kind of society we want to be.
Yeah.
It does have this big like, oh, you want to be here? Great, we'd love to have you. And I do think that's really powerful. I can't express how grateful I am to have found my home in such an incredible, beautiful place with such generous, I think, big-hearted people. So I'm very, very lucky to be here.
So next we're going to watch the actual show, not all of it, but quite a lot of it. So now it is a little bit sweary at moments, isn't it, Fiona?
During the show, there are two excerpts from plays. It's got some swear words in it. So if you're at all sensitive about that kind of thing, we're also going to do a podcast version, which won't have the swearing in it. So if you'd rather have a clean version to listen to, wait for Friday when the podcast will be out. But if you're like us, you're used to hearing that kind of thing, you don't turn a hair, you live in Scotland, then you'll be fine.
Well, I mean, the thing is, folks, it's just hilariously funny. Anyway, we've given you a heads up, so your choice.
My first artist I'd like to invite today to the stage is Maya Ross. She's an incredible poet, self-proclaimed, outspoken, direct, and unapologetic in her delivery of uncomfortable truths regarding inequalities and injustice. Maya's poetry strikes a chord for more than independence, human rights, and a fighting for what's right. Welcome, Myra.
2021, remember when the new Scots, the refugees, were given the right to vote in Scottish Parliament, and I was beside myself with joy, because nothing says you're home like you've got a say, does it? So I wrote this on the 6th of May 2021, when we gave new Scots the vote in our election. Did they tear you from your land, son? Did you flee your home in fear? Did they steal you from your history? This now, you're welcome here. You're not welcomed as a beggar because we don't look down on you. You're here, your home's with us, and we lived through clearance too. Imagine that between us we could make our mark and say those who suffered clearance claim their freedoms back today. The immigration services came to Glasgow to take some Glaswegians away. Glasgow had some other ideas. And what I said about that as an add-on to clearance was you cannot take our neighbours because they don't belong to you. They belong to Glasgow, as all Glaswegians do. And on the back of that, I wrote for the man who took himself out of his house and underneath their bus, under their van, to stop them taking his neighbours away. Called Wheels of Injustice. I only saw his image there beneath the wheels. I was awash with pride and I wonder how he feels. Will they display compassion and pretend they don't see you? Will they drag you from your duty, and what harm might they do? Even just confinement that cold that bites your back, yet still you hold your ground and you gave no thought to that. While me and all the others were watching proudly say they tried to take his neighbours and he said no, not today. You stayed the wheels of justice and you did what brave folk do. You became the spoke that stopped the wheel that turned its might on you.
When we first spoke, those poems were so beautiful, and they just, I feel, probably similar in the room, but just like strike certain chords, especially maybe people who were in Glasgow at the time. I was in Glasgow at the time, and seeing that happen and being so proud of the Glaswegians on that street who were like, no, this is not how we do it here. And you mentioned to me that your poem, that Clearing, the first one you shared there, was shared quite a lot, unfortunately less crediting you at the time. Mm-hmm. But how did you feel about your poem being circulated in that way in those kind of moments?
Well, I heard about Clearance being shared a lot the year after, because somebody had taken it and photocopied it and laminated and stuck it all over the streets of Glasgow. And somebody put that on Twitter a year later and said, here, this has been all over Glasgow, is it Armada? And sent it to me and I said, it is Armada. And I was delighted because I thought, well, there's another man in Glasgow somewhere. It's like everything that we do in Scotland, isn't it? It's like you sing a song and you tell a story. Quite often what somebody else's art does inspires me. So a lassie put a picture up on the Yes Stones page on Facebook of the butterfly. There's something in my heart and knowing in my soul that this is not my destiny and I am as yet not home. It's there as I push back against these walls that hold me in, a raw determination that makes me try again. Try and push with all I am, leave my prison, break out, go, roar my certain I can against their defiant no. There it is, the cracking, the breaking of the wall, there my golden wings for flight, a salt iron on full show. Here for all the world to see from the shell I used to be, ready now to rise, to fly, a butterfly, I, free.
Thank you.
And then back to Lynn at her art, because Lynn's got a picture of a spider that she hangs around her neck, and don't you can talk to her about that, but she's my pal, and she inspires me, and so is this. It's an independent beastie in his web upon the wall, and there's no need for any government, that boy can do it all. No, there's a bad word in there, thinks he's rebellious, setting beasties all apart, now he's been independent thinking right from the start. No cage is there to bind him, and there's no bars to hold him in. He's free to be the beastie that the beasties have been.
If people want to find your poems afterwards, is there a way for them to do that?
Yes, I'm on TikTok at my rants and rhyme and Instagram at my rants and rhyme. So Wheesht is the one I promised you. There's another one that I'll share with folk later on if there's time. But Wheesht, this is when Matty Black was giving it out for saying pished in the Parliament. What the actual what? Wait, that's a bit offensive. You think pisht's offensive? Did you hear it at the parties? Wheesht, the trouble is the etiquette. Watch your P's and Q's. Don't use foul language, because that will just not do. Do defraud the taxpayer. Do break your own rules and defend the indefensible among the well-spoken fools. Let me educate you, pisht is not a swear, and twist your drawers till wheesht give on your hair. Challenge all the liars, the perverts and the thieves, and challenge to the fraudsters. Pisht gives peace. We are not offended by Scotland nor our words. We do find you an affront, quite frankly absurd.
Myra was my first artist that I got involved, and then it was like a beautiful effect that then everyone came from there a lot of ways. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much again. Welcome to the stage, Kathy Sparrow. Kathy is the author of 3 novels: The Feud, The Black Dog, both part of the War Witches series; The Cold City. Cold City, which is what she'll be reading from today, has an interesting relationship to independence. It imagines 2 parallel versions of Scotland. One is more prosperous and tolerant and represents the kind of society I think most Scots would choose. And the other, the cold Scotland, is one that has suffered an environmental disaster, where the destruction of the Gulf Stream has become dangerously reactionary.
Thanks, Jasmine. I'm going to read a little bit from Cold City, and this is one of the earlier sequences where the protagonist Susie is in the cold world, which is geographically the same as the one she's used to, but she's about to find out as she's walking home that it's ever so slightly different. I decide to make my way via the Clyde side. River Street actually leads away from the river. Not the quickest way, but it's snow-ploughed twice a day, so it's easier underfoot. And almost all of the street lights work. I find the small pass through the range of ploughed snow on the curbside and step through gingerly onto the almost black road. Now I'm exposed to the cold that comes off the river. Strange how something frozen solid can breathe out cold like this. My nose and cheeks begin to ache instantly. I stop to wrap my scarf securely over my mouth and nose. A moment's touch of ice on the bare face, and then it's covered again. The smell of wool is suffocating, but I figure I can do my breathing later. Unfortunately, I can't cover my eyes, so as I lower my head and push through the cold, it's as if I were fighting against a gale, although the night is still. After a minute, my lungs are starting to hitch, so I tug the scarf slightly away from my face and drag in the air as fast as possible, hoping to heat it up by the time it reaches my mouth. I succeed partially. Then I carry on, thumping along the icy tarmac and thinking warm, grateful thoughts about the thick, gripping soles of my boots. In another few minutes, I have to do the coming up for air thing again, then I retie my scarf. All of this, of course, I do without raising my eyes. After a few minutes, a pale shape comes into my line of vision, trotting towards me, no more than 10 yards away. I stop dead. It stops too and looks at me. There's no way this is a dog. The legs are too long, its eyes are pale, the shade indeterminate in the cold light, but not a dog's warm chocolate brown. I've seen wolves before, loping around their enclosure in the zoo. They were well cared for, but they still looked thin. There was raw meat on the ground, but still they circled, moving easily in a pack, eyes bright and tongues lolling. Their fur was short and sleek then. But the wolf in front of me is shaggy as a bear, dark grey about its head and flanks, white all down its lanky legs. It's carrying something, some light-coloured fabric. It's holding a baby in its mouth. I hear myself make a whimpering noise. There is warmth spreading between my legs, and some distant part of me is wishing I'd gone for a pee before I left the uni. The baby is wrapped tightly in a blanket. The wolf has hold of it by the leg. There is nothing behind me but a mound of snow and a blank wall. The wolf is still looking at me. It shakes its head just a little to get a better grip, and its jaws make a gnashing sound. There's a horrible cry, "Mama!" Now I hear myself scream, high-pitched and girly, not my voice at all. The wolf leaps backwards on all fours like a lamb. The baby clatters to the ground, the blanket falls across its twisted legs. The wolf turns and canters away, pausing to look back at me once before turning towards the river and disappearing through the bank of snow. I don't want to look at what's on the ground in front of me. I concentrate on getting out my mobile, fumbling to switch it on. Still no signal, but that's all right, I'll run. I'll turn and run, I'll get help. Then there's another, "Mama!" I look at the baby. Yellow curls, rosebud smiling lips, eyes closed, flowery frock with one sleeve torn off, so the join between the arm and shoulder is visible. I step forward, grasp the plastic arm and lift. There's an obliging "Mama!" and a click as the blue eyes roll open. Oh, thank fuck. Fuck's sake. My voice trails off into laughter. I look up the road after the road. You stupid fucker, what did you want a doll for God's sake? It's a Christmas present.
That was beautiful and horrifying. Everyone will share. I wanted to start with saying that I invited you here today because I think that speaking of independence and political change comes in lots of different ways. And I think in this book, it's maybe not as big as some of the stuff you'll be able to see around, but I think there's lots of incredible power and like you can't imagine a world you can't see. I think there's a really powerful use of literature and that kind of imagining, so thank you for that. I think the first question I had was you always mentioned that, or you mentioned to me, you imagined the warm part of Scotland being independent and the cold, which is what this reading was from,
yes,
being still in the Union. Do you think there's a reason that you didn't make that as explicit when you wrote this book?
I think it was a personal timing thing. I began writing the book nearly 10 years before it was actually published, as is often the case with most novels.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was still crystallising the whole idea of independence in my mind. I still had hopes for devolution, as so many of us did back in the day, and then we got Boris Johnson, so that's obviously. But what I was trying to do is imagine a better world that was becoming more tolerant, that gay marriage was becoming legalised, which at the time I was writing this wasn't actually a fact.
It's a good 10 years before, wasn't it?
It was, yes, it was still a pipe dream, so thankfully that came true, so I don't have to imagine that anymore. But yes, I was imagining, deep down, I think I was imagining the warm world as at least seriously devolved, or at least devolved as I had hopes for at the time. But the cold world has suffered an environmental disaster, and frightened people tend to stick with the status quo, and this is what's happened.
They do,
So, unfortunately, yes, so everybody's just kind of stayed within the union in that world.
Do you feel like, it's a lot of question mark, but do you feel like you can kind of see that future more and more, that cold side of it, that kind of fear reaction and even the environmental aspects, I guess, as well?
Yes, where the cold city is just, the cold world isn't just physically cold, it's become much more reactionary, and religious fundamentalism is on the rise, intolerance is on the rise, the age of consent for gay men has been put up to 21, as it was, as it was many years ago now, thank God. So yes, I imagined, so I think that you can see it coming, especially as, well, I don't know if climate change actually is happening, we certainly think it is, and it's frightening, so there's more scared people out there. More status quo. Sure.
I mean, a lot has changed since you wrote this book, obviously, but I guess the independence movement in general, do you think if you wrote this book today it would be different?
It would be, the warm world would be a lot more firmly independent. The book as it is begins with the legalisation of gay marriage, and everyone's celebrating that. I would totally begin now with a celebration of independence in the warm world. And then the cold world would be still hung with Union Jacks and still have somebody like Boris Johnson. Can't really imagine anything worse.
And yet we can see it with our eyes.
Well, yes, wolves are the least of the problems. But yes, fortunately, some of the things I predicted in the warm world have come true, thank goodness.
Which is incredible.
So I'll need to keep writing my fantasy.
That's the thing. We need to see what could happen for it to happen, so I'm really grateful, and thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you.
The next act I would like to invite are from Action Theatre Scotland. They're a group of up-and-coming theatre makers based in Glasgow. They're creating original works that are authentically Scottish. The first of these is a play called Alba. Alba is set in 2014, where Paul and his S4 classmates battle with their first ever vote whilst navigating history lessons and teenage life in working class Glasgow, featuring songs both original and inspired. We are seeing an excerpt of this today. However, if you want to see the full play, little plug here, they're back in Edinburgh in August for the Fringe Festival from the 2nd to the 13th at Gilded Balloon Paddock. So welcome Chris, who's going to be performing.
I'm sorry, Craig. I'm sorry that you can't see past your stupidity and your selfishness. I'm sorry that you think I should just sit here and have a laugh at you, like we have done every single day for the past 10 years. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy having a laugh, but we're not fucking getting anywhere. So you can sit here and be upset that I don't want to be immature all the time. You do that. But I want to make something myself. The referendum was a kick up the arse I needed to see that I don't know fuck all. I don't want to be a waste of the rest of my days. I know I gave Peter grief for being a wee tryhard, but at least he might actually make it somewhere once we're at this shit hole.
Cheers, Paul.
Got it. I've got something to say. I'm scared. Scared that I'm going to be a fuck up. Scared that my mum and dad are going to leave each other. Scared that we're going to run this country into the ground and never dig our way back out. Scared that I'll make the wrong choice, no matter how much I try and convince myself that it will only make a difference. Scared that I'll end up with nothing. On the dole, no job, all this time wasted and nothing to show for it. I don't want to end up like that. I want to make something myself, because they don't deserve to be proven right. Those self-righteous arseholes that think that they're better than everybody just because they've got a wee bit more money in the bank. And look at us, bottom of the barrel. They look on at us with pity and shame. They don't respect us. They don't want to help us. Why do you think this school's been in a downward spiral for so long? Because nobody wants to see us do well. We should be lucky that we have teachers like Mrs. Lindemann that are still trying, still fighting for what matters. Giving two fucks whether we do well or no.
I knew he fancied her.
Stop it. Can you all see what I'm saying? I know I always take the piss all the time, but just try and take me seriously for once, alright? Whatever happens next, in years to come, it starts here. Because it's up to us. Do you know the amount of people that throw their vote away time and time again because they think it doesn't matter? Because I didn't. Nearly half the folk in Scotland don't vote. Can you imagine how different things might be if they did? But hey, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe things would just be this shite no matter who gets in. Well, if that's the case, why don't we get up half our arses and do something about it? Of course nothing's going to change about we just sit here and complain that nothing's changed. How the fuck does that solve anything? This is our country. If we want things to change, we need to do it ourselves. Sitting back and hope for the best isn't going to cut it. No anymore. Open your fucking eyes. Can you see what I'm saying? We are the first generation and possibly the last generation to ever say at this age. So let's make it count. For 50's sake.
Welcome, Jack and George. Thank you so much for that, Chris. Thank you for being here today. I guess my ambition to start with the creation of this. Was it something that you guys felt? Were you Paul in this moment? Were you 16 during this one?
Yeah, I was Paul. Yeah, definitely. Well, I kind of wrote the lyrics to the song, and I suppose at the time, thinking back to the memory of 2014, I was definitely Paul. I wasn't 16 right enough, I was a bit older than 16, but I was definitely Paul.
Yeah. Is that where this kind of started to kind of create?
Yeah, so Jordan had like the lyrics written for the songs that are in the piece, and then approached me with it, and we sort of looked at it and thought like the referendum was the best sort of framing device for this story, and Paul's story needed to be told now just because of what everything's going on now.
Yeah. Do you feel, and I haven't seen the whole play, but everyone should, do you feel obviously in that song it has a bit more of the maybe feeling? Does the play lend itself to more of an indie view, or is it that kind of middle?
Well, I'd probably say it's something that I straight for a start. I'm more heavily on the independent side. More than anything, I think just inside. Speaking from a young person's point of view, that's why a lot of young people are, well, maybe nowadays it's different, but at that time as well, like a lot of young people weren't really thinking about politics, especially because we had to be 18 to vote before this got brought in. So yeah, just the confusion in terms of the what side and trying to get into it and not really knowing.
Kind of being disconnected from the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that sort of stems from, like, Paul as a character, sort of indecisiveness rather than us, because I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Casting in terms of independence, but
If both of you, I guess, in that way, is it because you feel that now that you didn't feel that then? Is that why it's okay? More just obviously in this room, and I've heard a few people go, it's definitely I'm like, yeah, we've got the answer. We've got to accept the facts. But I think it's interesting to kind of frame that from that young perspective of not being included in these conversations. And even just having young artists involved, which is why I was really happy to have you involved as well, because it's nice different demographics and obviously the future, everybody.
In terms of the album, the prospect, I think because of the way I wrote the lyrics, in terms of my point in writing the lyrics of Alba before we actually came up with the storyline and stuff was based about Scottish history. And I kind of got inspiration from watching other musicals, but I think for myself, Alba was like, our history is so beautiful, right? And we obviously the play starts from 1296 AD. Kind of thing, and that was the start of the Scottish independence. And I think just from the songs, that's how we kind of put it in the play from the timeline, from the start of 1296 up to the independence referendum.
So again, big thank you to Chris before, but also a big thank you to Jack and John for bringing this to us today. Thanks so much. So our next act, so welcome to the Sad Girls Club, where girls are allowed to be, well, sad. Boyfriend broke up with you, the patriarchy getting you down, rape culture being a real pain, cry behind your pal's garage and ruin the party again? Well, have no fear because Sad Girls Club is here. Welcome to Sad Girls Club.
I think mine is me. What? Your sadness? Yeah, but that me at the end of the night. That crying me. That drunk crying me. That drunk crying me with makeup streaming down my face that someone used to put into a taxi with a portion of chips, cheese and gravy.
Oh, yeah.
She's not a very nice person.
No, she's a total bitch.
I hate her. And she says nasty things. Not nice things. Sad things. Things that make you
sad, tired,
scared,
angry.
Oh, so fucking angry.
See, to be fair, she's got a lot of things to be angry about.
Like work.
On moving out.
And making herself smaller. Not being listened to.
On moving back home.
And my mum.
Oh, my mum.
Mansplaining.
Manspreading.
Oh, was that good for you, baby?
No, it was not good for me. Oh, and having to be polite like all the time.
And not being noticed. And unsolicited hugs.
And opinions. Dick pics.
Hand contact.
And rape clauses. Roe versus Wade.
And Trump. And Trump. And Sunak.
And Brexit.
And fucking Boris Johnson.
Oh, fuck Boris Johnson. Order. Welcome to the rich and powerful and men club. As you can see from our top hats and mustaches, we are indeed rich, money, and powerful, the empire, and most importantly, and even more important, we're not stinky, smelly, whiny, stupid, childbearing, bleeding all the time girls. Yeah, babies. Yeah. On to business. Baron rich as fuck?
Yes, sir!
What is on the agenda for today?
Well, of course, sir, it's these women folk. They're kicking up a fuss again.
Again?
Yes.
What is it this time?
This time, it's about the fancy schmancy and oh, so luxurious
It's okay, Minister, you can say it, we're among friends.
Being taxed. I can say, as a man who has never had to buy a sanitary product in his life and never had to worry about money, well, ever, I don't understand what all the fuss is all about.
Agreed.
Silly, isn't it?
Almost as silly as that male birth control idea.
Well, I heard it if you take it, your willy gets smaller. I heard if you take it, your willy comes off altogether.
Gentlemen, please! We all knew this is preposterous. Because our willies are so massive that they could never fall together.
My willy could survive a nuclear holocaust. My willy is made of steel. I'll put my willy in anything.
Yes, we have heard the allegations, Minister Newman, yes. And that's why you're getting a promotion. Yeah! Oh, Jesus.
That's not what actually goes on, is it?
That is 110% exactly what goes on. Fact.
Really? Stop winding me up. Stop scaring her, more like.
Oh, look, it might as well be.
What do you mean?
Like, think about it. It's all just like one big boys' club, right? Like, look, whether you're female or not, all that matters is what private school your mum and dad could afford and what pals that you make there. So then you can just like move in those same circles for the rest of your life, never talking to anybody who doesn't own a fucking Land Rover. Oh, and so no wonder they don't care about me. Or anyone in this room, for a matter of fact. All they care about is their pals and what affects their pals and what affects the little bubble that they live in. And oh, we don't come close to popping that bubble. Look, people were like outraged at Trump for hiring his pals to be in his cabinet, but I don't know why. Because the Westminster's been doing it for fucking generations. It's called the fucking Tory Party.
Do you feel a bit better?
I do, thanks.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
You are the writer of this piece.
I am.
And director?
No, there was a man involved at some point.
You don't talk about him.
He's left now.
We don't talk about him. So as the writer, I think a lot of people talk a little bit about writing today, but I think political satire has a certain power to change the narrative. What do you think drew you to that?
That's a very good question that I've not really thought about in a while. I forgot there was a question portion to this. So I think satire in general, like, so Sad Girls Club as general, I didn't want to hit people over the head with a feminist stick. I didn't want it to be like, oh, another feminist play, like that sort of thing. And then the sort of boys club aspect to that, I was like, I can't just go and put my opinions in a script and be like, I am dictator, writer, this is my opinions. But I can lead a horse to water slightly. I can go, this is ridiculous, this is maybe 10 times what you think. It's actually not that far away from what's actually happening. And if you're laughing at it, then you know it, and then you go, oh, that's not maybe the best. And maybe we should do something about that.
Great idea.
Yeah.
I think also that's the power, right? I think we're all laughing at the joke and we're all like, oh, this is all very real. Mm-hmm. Oh no.
Funny because it's true.
Yeah, it's funny because it's true. So I think that's really interesting. I think obviously this is just a part of your play which is not otherwise not as political the rest of the show.
It's low level political throughout of it. It comes across as first world problems, it comes across as it's 4 girls meeting up to cry and be sad with each other because they feel they can't have that voice anywhere else, and it's a safe space to do it and all that sort of stuff. But then throughout that they touch on the way our society is set up and the way that men treat women and the things that we're not talking about, like rape clauses and Roe versus Wade and all these things that you go like, oh, and we're joking about them but they're serious, and these are and yes, we can really cry that our boyfriend broke up with us and we're dead sad about that, but also let's have a cry about those things as well.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes more to cry about.
Yeah.
Like all of the people.
Yeah.
I think my next question is more about your personal relationship with Scottish independence, and something that you've spoken to me off stage. I guess when you've done canvassing or bits and pieces that you've done, Do you think that this work that you're doing maybe hits people at a different angle than the canvassing that you've done previously?
I think so. I think it makes it a lot more accessible to people who maybe don't feel as politically aware, don't feel smart enough to talk about certain things, or don't. And it's what Chibi at the start and Black Oil did, and it's all these sort of plays that would go, we're just going to present you with the facts of things, and we're just going to talk about this, and we're just going to, and it's a lot more accessible for people who maybe don't feel like they don't know enough to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. I want to just hear a big round of applause for Hannah and Sagos for today.
We are taking it to, we're at the Harbour Arts Centre in Irvine on the 8th of September. We're there for like a one-off wee thing. We're then going to Glasgow Comedy Festival next March at some point. Amazing. Maybe some tour dates, and then hopefully back in Edinburgh for some more sad girls. So if you know any sad girls, just send them to us, and we'll fix everything.
That's a promise, it's a guarantee.
Yeah. Or you're coming back.
Oh, you're right. Well, thank you again. Big round of applause for sad girls. The next person I'd like to call up is Richard Proud. So Richard provided these incredible photos that you would have seen when you came in. So he's a photographer and an artist and a supporter of independence and an active campaigner since the 2014 referendum. He developed an interest in photography in 2018. He's also done a bit of painting and selling a few works in local galleries, and a regular offender in creating yes stones and slates. Richard, thank you. So everyone would have seen these pictures that came in. They're stunning. When I saw them today, I've seen some online, but it was really beautiful to see them all framed, and it kind of hits you in a different way, especially your use of colour. I guess when you started taking them in 2018, did you feel like there was something missing in those things? Is that why you started documenting, or why did you start documenting and sharing these rallies?
Took the camera along in 2018 in Dundee, and took a few photos, shared them on the photo page, and a lot of people seemed to like them. Got it shared quite a lot. I think probably around about the same time I got into the yes stone side of things as well. So paints on the yes stone, so I suppose the flare was coming out.
Yeah.
And just playing with it, and then just playing around with those colours.
They're very striking, and we've seen the use of blue and kind of the grey scale, and then bringing that blue to the forefront is, I think, really powerful and really eye-catching. I guess, what do you hope those photos inspire?
I suppose it's just a bit of recognition of the people that are going along. And there's a lot of colourful characters. Yeah. And I just want to try and highlight some of that and appreciate the effort that they're putting in, like going over marches and quite often walking 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah.
To do that. So yeah, I think it's just a bit of I think there's a bit of documenting it as well.
I agree. I mean, the recognition part of that is really interesting, because I think for me, a lot of the arts that we perform, again, maybe isn't, or put together, maybe isn't to change minds of people. I think it is sometimes to go, you're doing great, keep it up. And I think that's sometimes what your work does.
And I think it became quite more motivational for some people during the COVID times.
Yeah. And reassuring. And so you still kind of feel part of it as well. So it's an event you can go to, you've still got that, and you kind of see the good fight still being fought. I think it's a big power of what you did.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
I think you do. I think you're more than trying at this stage, Richard. Would you like? I mean, I'd like to see these photos in the media instead. I mean, like these ones, and I guess the angle that you're putting out, the more of what I would call the truth. That angle that you're putting out, is that something that would be quite, I guess for me, would be quite refreshing to see? Is that something that you'd hope that some of your photos would be picked up and shared in different kind of ways?
Well, that would be nice, but it's not going to happen. Let's be realistic.
Idealistic one, that was me. That's fine. You've got your Facebook page, which I want to share with everybody as well, which is photos. Photies. I see. That's Australian there. That's on me. It's written perfectly. It's just me. Photies by Rich. So check out all of them there as well, because they're so stunning. But have a look online as well. Thank you so much, Richard, for being here today. This is a yes stone. I got this yes stone 2 years ago now in Partick. And I was just like, this is amazing. People just make these. And I was with a woman, and I was so excited to be connected with the group. Yes Stones have raised thousands over the last 5 years to support those in need and to develop an independent nation. So a big welcome to Lynn and Neil, who have kindly come to share and discuss their work. Hello. So you mentioned to me that you like that your art is non-confrontational. It's a way to kind of open discussions about independence, winning over hearts and minds. Why do you think that's an important angle for you to approach this conversation?
I think some of the things that have been said earlier about people not knowing where to start a conversation or what to say. It's either it's black or it's white. It's yes or it's no. It's not. There's a maybe leaning towards yes all the time. That's what we're aiming for. We're looking for these people who are on the borderline, and you can have a nice conversation and not feel like you're in their face about it. I mean, quite often it's children that will find the stones. We purposely do that, decorate the rooms, and children will like find them, and then say, what's this all about, Mum or Dad? And then they have to have that discussion.
That conversation.
So, yeah.
What have you found to be the most rewarding part of being part of this organisation and sharing?
It's the number of people we've met. So I've been painting stones for long before Yes Stones started. I was painting salt tires, leaving them on people's doorsteps, and a friend said, it's a group for this now. So I joined it. It was in the first couple of hundred. We're now at over 9,500 members across the globe. And we've met people at marches, we've made new friends through it. I met Richard because Richard painted a Lego man, and I said, oh, my son likes Lego, I'll post you a Lego stone. And it's that kind of, it's like finding your tribe.
Yeah, that kind of community.
Completely and utterly. We've been to so many different events. We've actually had stoners conventions. Much to our sons sort of discussed, you can't say you're a stoner. Do you know what it means? I'm like, yeah, we know what it means. We're a bit older than you. So yeah, it's really good. It is nice. And then 2019, one member suggested, we could paint on slates. We could all do a letter and come up with a phrase. So we kind of gathered a group of people together that were interested in doing it. So there's 27 artists that contributed to the Yes slates. There's been more since because the phrase has now changed from when people first came in because we've got slates so we can swap it around. But yeah, it's just great, and it's something that pulls people over. They want to come and see it. It's not frightening to go and look at a piece of art. I mean, the young folks earlier were saying talking about politics, and they use big words. I didn't understand them. Yeah.
This takes away all that.
They use big words to try and make you not understand it.
It's intentional.
It's done it on purpose. And we know that, so we use simple words to make it clear.
And I think it's so inviting. I think you touched on that just then, that it is really inviting, and I think that's such an incredible power of art to have quite an open, I think because artists generally need to have that kind of community and have quite an open sense to them. I think people don't create stuff if they're quite closed people, so I think that kind of comes through in everything that has been brought today. I think it brings everyone in.
We took the slates down to Gretna for the first Brexit date, 31st of January 2020, and we were told that the police had actually been out to the woman who was down there, had heard that there was this gang of stoners coming down. Right. So there was a counter-protest. The counter-protest went into the little friendship garden, which was behind like a 50-foot hedge, and nobody could see them. And these people eventually came out because all they could hear were cars tooting as they drove past. We laid them on the roadside, and as cars and buses, of course, are crossing the border, we're now in Scotland. Yeah. And people were tooting, waving, and eventually the unionists came over and started looking at me and see them going, that's really nice. That's beautiful. It did kind of, you say, well, come and look at them, come and see what they are, have a conversation with us.
that's the whole crux of this whole event, guys. This is what Lynn's just said. But it is that it's becoming people again, and remembering that that's what this whole thing is. And how you can share that in so many different ways, which we've seen today as well, and with these slates. And for me, I find them so striking, and already I've asked someone if I can use their design as a tattoo. So I'm like, yes, please. This is beautiful. I must have it on my body forever. But I do think it has a different way of bringing people in, and even if it's fleeting, if you see them online, but I love the people who found them in interesting places. I'm on the Facebook group now. I'm very much all the way in. And I've heard that people found them in the States and like all these other kind of places. And I think it's really important to kind of have this conversation bigger as well, because that's how I think we do get independence, is having that kind of recognition externally as well. Because if everyone else goes, hey, you're a country, you're like, yes, we're a country. Big thank you to both you and Mia and for sharing that today. Thank you so much.
So I hope you enjoyed that performance. One thing that always strikes me is just how much creativity there is in the Yes movement. And I think we've seen a lovely sample of it today in what Jasmine's put together. And wasn't it lovely to see so many young folk on the stage?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, everything she said when we talked to her earlier, it's true. It's like it motivates people. It stirs up emotions. And, well, that's what we need to take the independence movement forward.
And who says it can't be fun?
And who said it can't be fun? Exactly. Oh, we have fun, don't we?
We do. We
We really hope you've enjoyed this. Jasmine and the rest of the entourage, if you're watching, thanks so much for putting it on, letting us have the footage and talking to us.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.